Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metal Nation, joined today by John Macaluso of Stone Leaders. How you doing, my friend?
Very good, very good, very good. I'm in Italy.
Hey,
Calling you from Italia.
Yeah, see, this would have worked better if you'd have just stayed home in New York, right?
Big time, big time. Been a long time. I'm going back in September, man, just to visit.
Nice. Well,
I love my ex-home.
Well, you know how it is. You go to Italy, you meet a beautiful woman, you fall in love, you're stuck there. So there you go.
You know, it was weird. I came here for a drum clinic, and I never left. It's been 7.5 years. I did a clinic. I started to hang out with people, sleep on some couches, get some hotels, tour buses. Before I knew it, I had an apartment, and I'm living here. And then I met a girl, like you said, got married, and I'm here, man. It's cool.
Nice.
But life is weird, man.
Now, you have worked with so many great artists over the years and quarterbacked a number of phenomenal projects as well. What made Stone Leaders so appealing for you?
Okay, I don't know if you know, I played in a band. I put a band together. The only band I ever put together was a band called Ark.
Yep.
And we had an album, Burn the Sun, and the first album just self-titled. You know, honestly, that album and the success it had and how strange it was and different, it came from frustration. I was playing in TNT, I was playing in Riot. I was playing in like kind of famous bands where you couldn't divert. You had to do what their style was. And, you know, I'm a rock drummer, but I also had an experimental background. I grew up with like Frank Zappa and Genesis and Yes, and I wanted to use that. So I started Ark, and I just went crazy with it, you know. But it's been years. I've been a session musician for decades after that. And, you know, I made a solo record, but between that, I was just playing with everybody. And it came time, I said, I got to make a record again where I'm using my stuff, you know, my lyrics and my plan. So we did Stone Leaders. But again, that was unplanned. Really quickly, I was doing a drum clinic tour, and a friend booked me in Zagreb, Croatia. I was like, Zagreb, Croatia, I can't even point it out on a map. But I went there, and I did a clinic at the academy in Zagreb. But I saw guitars in the audience, and kids, and older women, and there's always older women at my shows. But anyway, but, you know, I saw not everybody was a drummer. And I said, I'm going to bore people with paradiddles and stuff. So I asked the organizer, I said, you got any musicians I could play with? Some great guys. We can't rehearse. We got to, like, do it in 10 minutes. And he got me Ivan, which is the singer and guitarist on Stone Leaders, and Marco, who's the bassist. And they came in, no rehearsal. We did Burn. We improv'd, you know, Burn from Deep Purple. We improv'd some stuff, and they killed it. And I said, I'm going to call you guys, and we're going to do something in the future. So I think a year later, I started to contact them, and we started to write through the mail, through the internet. And that's how the whole thing began, man. It came out. I'm really happy with it. And it's out in Europe, and it's going to come out in the States and Japan on the 29th of June. Stone Leaders.
And it's a fantastic record. And I have to be honest, when I first heard about the band,
Thanks, man.
I was like, oh, God, not another overindulgent prog metal band. But having listened to the record...
That's why there's 4 guys. I said 5 guys looks too nerdy. Give me someone who could play and sing.
Well, I was really excited.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And I was really excited. I gave it a chance, too, because the record, I said, it's fantastic. It's got great depth and heart and a lot of personality and groove that are too often missing from the genre.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, my friend. Save that thought. But yeah, I mean, Stone Leaders is kind of dark prog, I call it, where the lyrics are very dark and the grooves are very linear and even slow. Slow is a word that prog guys don't know. You know, it's kind of mid-tempo, so nothing's 10 minutes long,
right.
And it's like a rock dark prog album, right? I mean, I can't really say it's prog-y, not prog, but it's prog-y.
Well, I think the opening track, Box of Time, is a perfect example of that. There's so much happening there, but it's still accessible. There's this groovy, vibrant energy to it, and it just reaches out and grabs you.
Great, man. Great. I mean, with prog bands, mathematics and odd time, you know, like 7, 9, 5, that's really standard.
Right.
I love that stuff because I'm a drummer, but you can lose, first of all, you're going to lose your whole female fan base as soon as a 9/8 comes. and and then, but it's not playing for the people. In the old days, Prague, Genesis, and Yes, they added odd times mainly for the story. Like if the lyrics would go with it, they needed an extra bar or a less bar. It wasn't so mathematical.
Right.
Anyway, long story short, with Stone Leaders, the odd time stuff I put together, I kind of still made 4/4. Like the drum beat of the verse of Box of Time is 7/8 and 9/8 together. If you put that together, it's 16, which is 4/4. So anybody could still tap their foot to it without getting lost. You know what I mean? We thought about this stuff before we recorded it.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I understand you sort of approach this creative process differently, sort of like you did back when you did Arc with sort of the recording the drum tracks or ideas first. What about that makes that so effective, do you think?
Okay, I'm a Van Halen fanatic. If somebody's going to bring me a Van Halen riff, you know, like or like Atomic Punk, you know, there's beautiful, beautiful riffs. But most times when a guitar player brings you a riff, it's cool, but you've got to follow that riff or the music just doesn't sound right. It's restricting is what I'm saying. If somebody gives me a riff, you know, it's 2 bars or 1 bar, you kind of have to go with that. So like with Arc way back when, I'm a Bozio fanatic, Terry Bozio,
right.
And he makes melodies on the kit. So after the drum beat is done, you could actually write a riff to his part. And that's the vibe we took with Stone Leaders. I used like a lot of bells. I put toms in the groove, where the drums went down first, and then Ivan, the guitarist, wrote stuff on top. And sometimes he said, I got the riff already because of the drum beat. So in a way, it's like it's not many people do it, so it's something different that makes it makes the music different from note one. You know what I mean? And Arc did the same on Burn the Sun, like songs like Waking Hour. It's bing. It's straight out of a Bozio. It's not Bozio riff, but it's kind of straight out of what Bozio would do. So these songs were written differently. They were written like Burn the Sun, where the drums were kind of put down first, and everything was written to that. You know, it's just a different way to go, man. And sometimes it sucks. You know what I mean? It doesn't always work.
Do you think that whole approach to the way that you did that injects some of that groove to it because you came at it from a rhythmic perspective?
Yeah, man, like what you said before about the prog thing and the groove and the feel, which is missing. I hate to sound like a broken record, but technology is overused in music now, and the human is kind of on the sidelines, especially drummers. And when I started recording, a thing called punching or looping, it was unheard of. You had to play the song from start to finish. There was no punching. The producer would say, go get dinner and come back in 2 hours, and hopefully I could connect this tape to make the edit work. Now it's like witchcraft. Like you'd be burned at the stake 20 years ago if you came up with Pro Tools. And you mean I could play a verse and I could stop and do the next section? Like that was unheard of. But the generation is relying on that now.
Oh, yeah.
And they think it's normal, even to quantize. I mean, quantizing drums, to me, you didn't play it. I'm sorry. You know, my wife, she's a guitarist. She could easily go make a record as a drummer with technology today, and she hasn't played drums. So I just wish they would stop this. I just wish more human element was in metal, because metal, sorry, but has become the dance production of any style of music now. It's all fucking it's so quantized and so edited, where if you do a track kind of a little dirty, Zeppelin-y, it now sounds wrong.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Everything is so perfect, and I just miss the life and the dirt and the real groove of drummers, man, and rhythm sections. Like Zeppelin is still big, and you could still listen and get a different vibe every time, because you're in the room with John Bonham. You could almost feel him, you know, because he was there at the moment you were hearing it. With a lot of the metal shit, it's recorded, and the guy leaves the studio, and they press that talent button, and he's perfectly in time. But to me, it's too in time. So with Stone Leaders, I really concentrated on groove, playing to the click, pulling it a little back. So it's not necessarily perfect. It's perfectly wrong every time.
Right.
So it's in time, but perfectly not perfect. You know what I'm saying? I pulled the snare drum behind the beat, So if you look at it on the screen, it looks off. But if you do it the same spot every time, technically it's on. And that's how, I think that's the concept of groove.
Yeah, it's got more of that raw organic feel to it, which is missing. Everything's become so homogenized through technology, as you said. It just steals the life and soul out of it. So
that's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I get calls. One of the I don't want to talk your ear off, but man, I'm in the mood to talk. I get a call from a guy, a keyboard player. He lived in Italy here, and he said, okay, we want you to do the album. We're sending you samples. We got the fee straight. Everything was set to go. And he goes, I won't charge you extra for the quantization. We will do it here. And I said, what do you mean? You're not touching my drums, man. He goes, no, of course, it's the European standard. It's got to be quantized. I said, then I'm not recording it, man. And he was blown away. He's like, but it's got to be. No drummer can play so perfect. I said, but man, don't you want the music to breathe? Why are you hiring me? Go call another guy, you know? So I turned it down because I don't want to start being recognized as a guy who's, you know, it's like the people using auto-tune. Like, yeah. It's a tool. It's just a tool. So I kind of, maybe I'm old school. I'm carrying the torch, hoping that groove will come back to metal, you know, but we'll see, man. Yeah. But you know exactly what I'm saying, right? Because you hear a million metal records, and, you know, sometimes it gets stale because it's so perfect.
Yeah, it's just, and you can feel there's a lifelessness to it. But so what you mentioned Ivan and Marco, obviously the core of you guys when you started, but you also brought in Dino Jalusic of Animal Drive into the fold. We all know what a wonderful singer he is, but who knew he had such mad skills on the keyboards?
Yeah, man. It comes down to what we first said, like I was serious, I'm like the 5-piece prog thing. I mean, Ark was different because it's not like a rock band. We kind of lived like AC/DC too. We weren't like the guys that on a Friday night were playing video games. We all came from Malmsteen, so we were pretty fucking crazy, you know, and that came out in the music. Like Joel Turner said, it's like AC/DC playing prog, which is a big compliment to me. So when it came to Stone Leaders, I said, it would be so cool to have like a Who, you know, the Who, like Daltrey sings and Townsend. There's 2 lead singers in a way when you think about the Who.
Right.
And I said, how cool would it be to get a guy who plays keys and can sing? And Ivan's like, wait, I know this dude Dino. He's a kid. He's like a young dude, and I'll call him. So it happens he's a huge Ark fan. So we met him in a rock pub in Zagreb, and we talked, and he came down, and he sat on the keys and played and started to play crazy stuff, and then he whipped into like a piano with a ballad, and he sang, and it was great. I said, okay. But at the time, Ivan did all the vocal tracks. And then I'm like, Ivan, you know, I hate to step on it, but let's have the dude, Dino, sing half the tracks, and that'll be cool. And Ivan was like, cool. It was a lot of guys who were like, no way, man, you know. So Ivan was up for it, and so Dino sang Ivan's melodies, and sometimes they did voices together, harmonies, and together they're killer, you know, also. But so we kept it a 4-piece. And I think it's a lot of sound for 4 guys.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I remember seeing Dino actually do a cover of an old Ark classic, "Heal the Waters." So.
Yeah. Like it's kind of how we met because of Ark. It was like, I actually met my wife because of Ark too, man. Like she was a big fan of the song Resurrection. She didn't know who the drummer was. She had no idea it was me, you know. But she liked the band. So when I did a clinic in Italy, and she came to the clinic. And I played along to some Ark tracks, and afterwards I met her, and I was like, "Let me get your phone number. Let me get your email." Like, a beautiful girl, and you know, we started to hang out, and like a year later, you know, we finally got together. But pretty much Ark is responsible for that, and it's a big thing in my life, so I'm happy about it. Dino is an Ark fan, definitely. So he's got the tone of the voice, but what I didn't want people to think from the get-go is that I was trying to make the second Burn the Sun, because that was not the intention at all. Because it's not. It's a little arky because the voice and the songs are not completely arranged normally. But anything I do lyrically or drumming-wise, and with a singer like that, automatically is going to have a little bit of Ark to it already, you know? But it's not like I intended, let's make the second Ark, because that's a completely different formula.
Right.
To write those type of songs, you know?
Definitely. When you go into the studio, you usually have the songs pretty much done in your mind. This is what it's going to be. But were there any that once you got in the studio and you started working on it, it sort of took on a life of its own and went in a totally different direction?
With Ark, yeah, and that's a different story. I'll tell you in a second. But with Stone Leaders, the drums were recorded first with like with an arrangement in mind. Like, this is going to be the chorus. This is, and then Ivan wrote the guitar parts, and I gave him the vocal lyrics, and he wrote the melodies. So pretty much everything was set, because Ivan made like what we call a pilot track, which is like the click track with his guitar only, and I played to that. So everything was pretty set with Stone Leaders until we made the decision to have Dino come in and do some of the vocals. And also the keys, because I think he was going to college or something where he couldn't do all the keyboards. So Ivan's like a workaholic, and Ivan wanted to finish, and Ivan went and got this like space-aged guitar synthesizer where he clips on his guitar, and it actually had keyboard sounds. So Ivan played some of the keyboard solos.
Oh, wow.
So that was unexpected. That was unexpected. But it's really cool because it comes from a different head. Right. But pretty much it was pretty set the way we were going to do it.
We're going to say something about Ark.
Oh, really quickly. One of the studio fights, one of the studio brawls came when Feed the Fire, A Song on Burn the Sun, had the best chorus. It was beautiful. It still is. It's the best chorus we have. We wrote it in New York. But the rest of the song was completely different than it is now. I remember we were working so hard in Germany finishing the album, I went to another town to meet a friend for like 2 days. And when I came back, Tora, the guitarist, recorded this like almost like a rockabilly guitar thing, like punky. And I'm like, what the hell is that? You're destroying our song. And I was so angry. We had a big fight about it. I'm like, it's the best song. And they're like, no, just keep it. Let's see what happens with the vocals. But with that groove, we told Jorn, sing like Sting. Let's try to make it like a Police vibe. And Jorn's a brilliant singer in the studio, so he just mimicked Sting, and the song came out super cool. So Ark was a band like nothing is over till it's over. Completely different than Stone Leaders. We experimented and wrote a lot of shit on the spot, So just a different head.
Now, we don't have time, obviously, to talk about all the tracks on the album, and you've already spoken to some of them in some of the promo stuff you put out, but a couple of the tracks that you hadn't covered yet that sort of stood out for me were Blind Crusade and Shot by Lies. What can you share about those two?
Cool. Well, Blind Crusade are lyrics that I had for the third Ark album. And I love the lyrics so much where I say, I doubt we're ever going to do this third album, which is a shame, but it's true. And I want to use these lyrics. I really love the lyrics. I showed Ivan, had like a old Ark book of the lyrics, and Ivan said, these are cool lyrics. Okay, let's try to put them to the music we wrote. So we did it, and it worked. But on the next page, or one of the pages close to it, I had a lyric, and it said Stone Leaders. And he goes, what's this? I said, it's just a title I had about like a statue. If you look at like, Ulysses S. Grant or something from the Civil War, the statue, he's a Stone Leader. He goes, that's a cool name for a band. I said, really? Okay, that's the name of the band. So it all came from the old Ark book. But I love that track, Stone. I love that track, Blind Crusade. Shot by Lies, I think, is the most different track on the album. It's almost like a Blood Sugar Sex Magic, a Chili Pepper guitar riff, and completely different vocally. And then we got the weird section in the middle where it's his sister and his sister's boyfriend, and all these different voices in every language, leading up to the explosion in the bridge. But that track definitely sticks out. Shot by Lies.
Yeah,
You dig those tracks? I mean, they stick out.
Yeah.
As good tracks, or just different from the others?
No, I really enjoyed those tracks, and Shot by Lies in particular, because there's so much going on, as you said. And one of the things that stood out to me, and and hopefully this isn't an insult to you in any way, was I picked up in places kind of a Mr. Big vibe, and even a little Eric Martin in the vocal there a little bit, and I just loved all of it. I thought it was a fantastic track. So
I love Eric Martin, but yeah, I mean, they definitely, those songs stick out. I enjoy them. I really love them. One track in particular that's also different is Ignited, and I wrote the lyrics. It's about Randy Coven,
right?
The bass player. He died from Ark, and Ingve. We toured together for years. He was my best buddy. So those lyrics you know, not in a cheesy way, but it's kind of like it's about Randy. You know, I mean, it's about like my relationship to him, but not being too corny or anything. You know, he's probably looking down, laughing, saying, "Come on, how sappy, a song about me." But Ignited is about Colvin.
Yeah, I was gonna. That was the other one I was gonna ask you about. So, and you guys, I always sort of wondered this. You guys, everybody thinks the thing that they recorded late is like the greatest thing that they've ever done, and I always wondered how long it takes after.
Not me.
I always wonder how long it takes after you've recorded something before you have real perspective on it for yourself. Now, you guys recorded this album a while ago. It's been out for a few months, obviously, over in Europe. Now that you've had a bit of distance from it, has your perspective of the album changed at all?
Much better. You could appreciate it more. Like I could pop it in and not listen to. Are the drums perfect? You know, I didn't use a click on this part. You know, so I could relax more because it's done and there's nothing you could do. And when I take a break, like I took at least 6 months before I popped it on, I listened to it the other day in the car and I was like, wow. For one, it's pumping because we didn't use samples everywhere, so it's organically pumping. And we had a great mastering engineer, Roger Leone in New York. He mastered it. But I definitely appreciate it more. It's a better album now that I took a break from it. You know? Nice. In a way, it's weird, man. I don't know. Like, after we finished it, I listened, and I'm like, it's cool, but it could be better. Like, I always compare things to Burn the Sun. Right. And I'm like, I don't know, is it good? I started to ask people, is it good? There's that paranoia when you finally finish something where you kind of got to ask people. And unless it's like Burn the Sun, that was different. But I was asking around, like my wife and different people, is it cool? Yeah, it's great. It's like, I got a little paranoid. But then I took a big break and I listened, and it's a good album, man. I'm really happy with it. I'm proud of it.
Nice. And as you should be, it's a great record. And I've done that with my writing before, my fiction writing. I'll write 2 or 3 chapters of a book, and I'll say, and I'll put it away, and 2 years later I'll go back and pull it out and going, hey, this is great. You know?
Yeah, what did I do? Why did I stop? I know what you mean, man.
Exactly.
So you write it too, like you write like novels and stuff, or
yeah.
What do you do?
That's I work on mystery novels and stuff. Unfortunately, the hard part is you know, doing my day job and then doing the music stuff. It's like I don't really get time to write that stuff anymore, and I keep wondering if it's time for me to hang up the music so I can go back to writing the fiction and actually finish one of the books and whatnot. But who knows? But speaking of Ark and Burn the Sun, it's been about 20 years since you started Ark. Are you still talking about doing a Burn the Sun project to sort of commemorate that in some way?
Well, check it out, man. Because I'm on this as we speak. I mean, when I'm done, I'm emailing people about this thing right now. It's the anniversary now, a 20th anniversary of Burn the Sun, when we actually went into the studio. Because the music was recorded 3 times.
Right.
The first time was in New York, and we flew. I flew Yorn and tore out. We stayed in my place in Queens, New York, and we started writing, and we recorded the drums in a studio in New York. And it was cool, but still, as we started writing more, I'm like, yo, this is better than we did. Let's just keep the chorus. Okay, boom. And then in Norway, we went in and we recorded the drums again, and we were ready to do everything over those tracks. And then we got a bigger record deal. And I'm like, okay, forget everything. Let's go in the real studio and record it for real. So that's when we went to Tommy Newton, who did Keeper of the Seven Keys and stuff from Halloween, and he did Scorpions, and a brilliant producer. So actually, the anniversary of the recording of Burn the Sun is now, because it originally was 1999, you know? So, I mean, between me and you, I tried to put Ark together 5 times, and it always ends up the same bullshit. So it just can't happen, and it's a shame. And Randy's gone, and Max is gone, and so I don't think it's ever going to happen. But you know what? I'm proud of this thing, and I'm the only one playing these songs live, pretty much. So I decided to put together a group that's going to do Burn the Sun.
Right.
And I did. But it's a trio. Think about that.
That's got to be interesting.
It's sick. It's sick, man. I got a keyboard. I got a bass player who sings and plays keys, and a great guitar player, a ton of effects, me on drums, and once in a while we use like backing tracks. Once in a while, like for Missing You, we'll do that. Otherwise, it's a 3-piece and it's pumping. It's really cool. We're not trying to mimic the songs exactly. We're trying to actually change them a little bit. So it's kind of like my cover band, because I don't want to play in a cover band. So, but we're gonna start doing gigs. We got our first gig on the 29th in Torino, Italy, and then we're booking shows. I'm doing that, and I'm also planning on going. Like, I'm talking to somebody in Brazil where I'm going to be going down and doing some clinics, and the guy's putting together like the best people he knows, and we're going to do Burn the Sun live from start to finish in a couple of shows down there. So I'm just going to be pretty much holding the torch, pushing these songs live, because a lot of people have never heard them live.
Right.
Because we did one tour, and I'm really proud of the songs. And it's a 20th anniversary. Usually people do another tour, but since we're not going to do it, this is kind of like my way to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm psyched about it. I love those songs.
Definitely an album worth remembering and getting more people in their ear. So before we get out of here, I would be remiss if I did not mention your stellar contributions to one of last year's top albums, Michael Romeo's War of the Worlds Part 1. Now, did you write your own arrangements for that?
Killer.
Isn't it? It is fantastic record.
No. It's unbelievable record. Romeo, for one, man, if you got real quick, I'll tell you real quick, he's one of the best people in the world. They all are. Symphony X is like the coolest people on the planet, man. And to me, the best prog metal band around. They're killers. And I never met them. Arc opened up for Symphony X and Camelot in 2001 at Prague Power in Atlanta.
Right.
And, that was our last gig. And we broke up after that. Symphony X, I remember watching them and being like, wow, these guys are great. But that's the only time I heard them. I never bought a Symphony X album. Then I got a call one day from Michael Lando, who's a friend of mine.
Right.
He played with Adrenaline Mob. He said, dude, I know you're the Fred Flintstone of technology, but you have to check your email. Michael Romeo has been writing you for like a week, and you're not responding. They're going to cancel the tour. Because, I'm like, yabba do. So I check my email, and I give Romeo my number, and he calls me, and he says, Jason had a problem, a medical problem with his heart, and we got this Iconoclast tour booked, South America, Europe, but it's coming soon, and I'm going to cancel these gigs unless you can do them. He goes, I know you through Arc and James LaBrie, and can you do it? And I say, of course I can do it. But I never heard the shit, right? So I told him definitely. And he's like, you sure you can do this? Because if you can, I'm going to kick your ass. And I'm like, no problem, man. So I hung up the phone. I'm like, hey, cool, I'm going to be playing with Symphony X. That night, I downloaded 2 songs, and I almost had a heart attack because I had to learn it within like 2 weeks, like everything, ready to play on stage with no notes. The first track was Iconoclast. The second track was When All Is Lost. So those 2 songs alone took me like 3 days to learn. I was about to cry. I'm like, what do I say? I said, yes, I got to learn this. Oh, my God. But, man, I did it, and we became great, great friends. And I love them. They're like brothers. So we were talking for years about doing a record together. Well, we were talking for a long time. And
hang on, back up a second, though. You didn't even have your drum kit when you had to learn those, right? You were trying to learn.
No, but, man, afterwards we're going to, I'm going to keep in contact with you after. I'm going to send you a YouTube video of me learning the songs on the couch, playing on my knees, and then playing with my teddy bear when I was a kid. I flew him over here. I'm not joking. So the bear, I'm holding his arms, and I'm playing the patterns with the panda bear. And that's no joke. There was no drum set. The only time I got to use a kit was 2 days before I went to America to rehearse. And I rented a studio, but downstairs there was like old men and women playing cards in the afternoon, and I'm learning Symphony X on the drums. Within like an hour, the Carabinieri, which is like the military police, they broke in my room, and the guy goes in broken English, he's like, you are a very good drummer, but stop. So I got kicked out of the rehearsal room, so I never really got to practice on the kit until I went to New Jersey and rehearsed with them. Because I didn't plan on living in Europe, so I never had a drum kit here. I was just like traveling around using a house kit.
That's hilarious.
So that's a true story.
So anyway, Michael said he was going to do an album at one point.
Yeah. So eventually I got the call. He's like, you ready? I go, for what? He's like, I haven't told you, but I've been writing stuff. And he played me some stuff, and I was like, wow, dude, let's go. And he said, we just don't know how to record drums. I said, I got the best engineer in Italy. His name's Simone Muladoni, and he lives in Italy here, and he's incredible. And Mike said, I don't know, man. I kind of do all my mixing, with Symphony X involved. I said, dude, give him a chance. And he did, and Simone killed it. He did a great mix. And but the recording process, Romeo wasn't here. So it was me and Simone. We would go in the studio, and Romeo sends demo tapes. And he's a great drummer, so he kind of programs it with me in mind. He's not just doing stuff that's not my style.
Right.
Like, he wrote the stuff thinking of me playing on it. He goes, dude, do your own fills, do all your stuff, do your linear, do your crazy stuff, but keep my kick drum patterns. And if I play a triplet, don't do 16th notes. That was the guidelines. I said, cool, man. So I went in, and I'm like, dude, I got total freedom. Let's rock. So we recorded the first 2 songs, and we were freaking. Me and Simone were like, he's going to love it. He's going to love it. The next morning, we send it to Romeo that night. And the next morning, this guy, the engineer, picks me up from my hotel, and he goes, dude, we got to get to the studio. We got a lot of shit to re-record. I go, what are you talking about? I start laughing. I'm expecting him to laugh. He's not laughing. I go, what? He goes, Romeo wrote you a book. Change this, change this. And we read the email, and I was like, what is this, Man-O-War? Because one part I put like this double bass thing. And, okay, I'm exaggerating. A lot of stuff we kept, but he was very picky. Like, don't hit that cymbal on this bar. So I started to listen to him and redid the tracks, and we stayed up later and we recorded. And as the days went on, the notes got less, and after like 4 days, he was just like, do your thing. Because we recorded 18 songs. We did part 1 and part 2.
Right.
So part 2 is almost done drumming-wise. But that's a lot of tunes, man. If I had to follow every little note, we would have never got done. But in the end, he loved it. He was like, spectacular. I thought that was a good word. But in the end, it came out great. I love that fucking album. Sorry, I love that album, man.
No, it was one of the best of last year's, but one of the best of all years. It was just a spectacular record, as you said.
Oh, cool.
So, John, again, thanks so much for taking the time and the great stories.
Thanks, bro.
Absolutely. We look forward to, so we'll throw one more last question here on the way out the door. So obviously you had wanted to go on with ARC. You've started this new project with Stone Leaders, which is fantastic. Do you see this going on and being more than one album, or is this sort of a one-off thing in your mind? I'm not sure, because everything has changed so much in the music world, man. I mean, records, you pump so much into it. You put years into these things, and the next day it's downloaded, and the guy only listens to it in his cubicle. Right. It's just making records, like, I do it for a living for other people, but making my own stuff, it takes a lot out of me. It takes a lot of time. So I'm not sure about doing another record. We might do it. We definitely might do it. One thing I'm sure of is I'm going to do another solo record. Stone Leaders, we'll see. I want to put this thing out, see the reaction, see if everything's possible, because it's a completely different world, as you know, these days. Yeah. But it would be cool, I got to tell you, man, because now, after it's done, we see the style of the band and the potential, and we could actually write songs to that style. It's kind of like an easier thing now. But we'll see, man. I'm not really sure about that. Sorry to be so vague on the answer.